Is the Amazon Perfect Practice Putting Mat knockoff as good as the actual Perfect Practice Putting Mat? Let's find out. All right, hey everybody, this is Brady and Tyson with Golf Ascending, and if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We do create weekly golf content, got a little notification bell there too. And today we are doing a review of the knockoff of the Perfect Practice Putting Mat. Now, a little while ago, we did a review of the Perfect Practice Putting Mat, and if you're interested in buying that, go check out our review before you do and see if you like it. But today, because of that video, we had a bunch of comments on there saying, oh, I was about to buy the Perfect Practice Putting Mat until I saw the much cheaper knockoff version on Amazon. So we decided to try it. We got it. It's called the Pro with Lynn. That's the company. And it's about an $95 putting mat.
And it is the Amazon choice.
And it's the Amazon choice. And for me, I don't know about you, but when I see an Amazon choice, I tend to go with that product because a lot of people tend to have bought it and reviewed it. And so this is what a lot of people are buying. And people have told us, oh, why would I buy the more expensive one when I can buy the knockoff? So we decided we need to get down to it, test it, see if it's worth the price to go more or to get the knockoff. So we're gonna both review it and give you our opinions.
Yeah, so before we hop into Brady's review, I just want to remind you guys, anytime that you watch a product review for Golf Ascending, it's like you're getting a 2-in-1 review video because both Brady and I are different golfers. Different handicaps, different play styles, and so we've got different sides of the ball, right-handed, left-handed. So,
yeah.
We both have different opinions, different values, and make sure to stay tuned to the end for my review. But let's hop right in with Brady.
All right, so first I want to actually go over the biggest differences between the Perfect Practice Putting Mat and the Pro with Lynn knockoff that you can get off Amazon. So first of all, I said the price of the Amazon knockoff is about $95, whereas the Perfect Practice Putting Mat is around $175. And so there is a pretty big difference there, about $80 or so. So those are the price differences, but when you get down to the out of the box, first things you notice, I want to go over the major differences you see when you compare the two. So one of the first things is with the track. The track here for the Perfect Practice Putting Mat is made of magnets, and they disconnect pretty easily and connect really easily. Whereas the Amazon knockoff actually has little dowels that connect to each other, which Tyson has found they aren't the best quality, but they are the dowels instead of the magnets. Perfect Practice Putting Mat is longer by about a foot, and there are actually other Perfect Practice Putting Mats you can buy for more money that go up to, I believe, 15 feet. But even between these two, they're pretty comparable besides the extra foot, but the track goes an extra 1.5 or 2 on the Perfect Practice Putting Mat instead of the Amazon knockoff here. Another major difference, and this is one of the biggest differences I think, is the actual material of the mat. The Perfect Practice Putting Mat is actually very smooth, whereas the knockoff is kind of thick. It's like the putting green that you would play on where they forgot to mow it for a week. It's a little thicker. Also, with the Perfect Practice Putting Mat, it is a lot smoother and sticks to the ground a lot better to where you're not really worrying about wrinkles and or bumps, whereas with the knockoff, you can see little bumps, and sometimes you might worry a little bit if it knocked you off track when you're putting. But another thing about how smooth the Perfect Practice Putting Mat is that I feel like you can really get that feedback because it is so smooth. If you pull it or push it, you're gonna know it. Both of them do have an incline. However, there is a pretty large difference between the knockoff and Perfect Practice Putting Mat, whereas the incline is a lot steeper on the knockoff. Another difference that you can see right away is that on the Perfect Practice Putting Mat, they have a little mat where the ball hits, and it kind of muffles the sound a little bit, kind of just has a more quality type sound to it when it falls through the hole and then when it comes back on the return. And the Perfect Practice putting mat also has 2 ball holders on the back where you can put the balls there. And then one more noticeable thing I would say about the mat is, well, a couple things. The Knockoff kind of has a more pixelated look. The lines aren't as crisp and clear, and it's almost kind of distracting in my opinion. And on top of that, with the measurements, you have 2, 4, 6, and 8 feet on both of them. However, on the Perfect Practice putting mat, you have the inches between, and you can also see the mark for the 3, 5, 7, and 9 footers. So I would say those are your major differences. They both have a return track. They both have a larger hole and a smaller hole to practice on. They also both have the kind of train track fill where it's kind of about the same size as your putter, so the triple lines, which is a pretty cool feature for a putting mat. But out of the box, those are some of your main differences. Also, the mat on the Knockoff is a little thinner and the holes are a little closer, but those are some of the major differences you get. All right, so those were kind of the main differences that I went over, but now I kind of want to give my review, and I just want to talk about a couple of things that really stand out to me, because you kind of got a little bit of my opinion as I was talking about the differences. But some of the major things, if I were to review the Knockoff to the Perfect Practice putting mat, is the actual quality of the mat itself. I love how smooth the mat on the Perfect Practice putting mat is, because I feel like I get the true feedback. I mean, that's what it's called, perfect practice. I know that this is gonna be flat and go straight. And if I'm pulling it, I know it's because of me and it's not the mat. And that is honestly one of the reasons why I decided to invest in the better putting mat, is because I had one of those $40 ones that was cheaper. And it was really flimsy, and sometimes it's hard to tell, like, was that a bad putt or was that just because the mat has a little crinkle in it and so it kind of went off its target. And so I really didn't like that. I didn't feel like it was good practice. And so for me, I was like, I want to know if I'm hitting good straight shots, get that feedback. And so for me, I feel like the Knockoff, I feel like it's better than that $40 mat that you can buy, but I still don't feel like you're getting that perfect practice or better practice, however you want to call it. The other thing I don't like about the Knockoff, and this is one of the biggest things for me too, is not only is it slower because it's not as smooth, but it also has a much steeper incline, which I think is kind of ridiculous, to be honest, because you have to hit it a lot harder to get up on that incline. And if I'm, doing a 4 or 5 foot putt, I know I'm not going to hit it that hard ever. And so if I'm comparing and trying to measure a 4 or 5 foot putt, that's not how I'm going to putt it. And so I don't feel like it's really good practice. Now, granted, the greens are going to have different speeds wherever you go, and you have to practice it, but that's something that bothers me about it. But that is my main review and some of the differences that I think personally it's worth going for the actual putting mat instead of the Knockoff.
All right, guys, so on to my review of this Knockoff version of the Perfect Practice putting mat. I'm going to talk about both of them, kind of what I like, dislike about them. But, Brady already mentioned some of the out-of-the-box differences that you notice. Obviously, the length is a little bit different. It's a little bit smaller in width, but you do still get a lot of the same features. You have this road, this track, that you can help kind of see where your putt's lining up. You do have markers that kind of show, how far your putt is. Although it's not as specific as the Perfect Practice putting mat, it does have those features, which is very good. Brady also mentioned we've got the small hole and the large hole. My opinion still is the same as the Perfect Practice putting mat video, which we have the link for. But if you're practicing on the small hole, even on this budget version, you're gonna hole a lot more putts when you hop over to the larger hole. Now, let's get into the more specifics of the Amazon putting mat, okay? One of the things for me is so I've had this putting mat in my house for about a month or so, And I actually enjoy putting in the house at night. It's, kind of time where I can kind of relax, unwind for the day. But we have a little baby and he goes to sleep fairly early. And so if I want to putt at night, it's difficult because the Amazon putting mat is very loud. When you putt it and it drops down into the hole, or you miss and it hits the wood in the back, it makes a very loud, clunky noise, and then when it rolls down the track, it kind of creaks down, and it's so loud, and I don't want to, I guess, make the mistake of waking up my baby that we tried really hard to put down. So that's actually a pretty big issue for me with that, kind of moving along with the track. It's also made of the wooden dowels that Brady mentioned. And I'll show a clip right here. One of the dowels actually did break off. Not the end of the world, you can still, hot glue gun or super glue, and it should work just fine. But there is a little bit of a quality thing there as compared to the Perfect Practice. Now I'm gonna squat down here really quick here, get a little bit closer. So Brady did talk about the material, okay? This one is a little bit more cushy, more carpet-like. This one is more of like a flat surface that feels like a compacted green, so to speak. A little bit faster than I would say most greens, but it's something that's gonna exploit your weaknesses when you're putting. And so when Brady talks about, I can see where I pull or I miss, it's gonna give you that information very granularly and kind of help you fix those very minor things in your putting stroke. Now, where I actually think that this putting mat serves a purpose is I'm a feel putter, okay? When I line up over the ball, I make sure I've got a good alignment, and then I look at the hole, and then I just straight back, I guess not straight back and straight through, but I just put a good putting stroke on it and kind of get a feel for it. Now, wherever you go, you can practice as much as you want on both of these putting mats, but you're still gonna have to get a feel for each and every green or golf course that you are playing on. The Perfect Practice putting mat is not a perfect example of the golf green that you go play at every week. This Amazon green is not the same green as that, but what it is gonna do is it's gonna give you that repetition. It's gonna give you that muscle memory of this is how to put a good stroke on it that's going straight and inline. So that's essentially why I like this. Now I'm gonna talk about price point, okay? So obviously, this Perfect Practice putting mat is far superior, okay? But we're talking the price difference between the two is about $75 to $80. Now, is it worth it to you to buy something more expensive that is far superior, or do you just want something that gets the job done, that you can get a good line, you can get a good read on what your putts are, but maybe you want to spend that extra $75 to $100 on a new golf club, a new bag. Maybe a training aid isn't what you're looking for. Now in this sense, maybe you go with something like this. But if you're really looking to improve your game, on a higher level, the Perfect Practice putting mat is probably the one that you want to go with. It's going to give you the most feedback. It's going to be a more true roll, and you're not going to be thinking in the back of your mind, is there a wrinkle in my line? Is there something wrong with the mat? Because it does lay down so nice. So that's my review of the Amazon knockoff of the Perfect Practice putting mat. If you're on a budget, it's not a piece of junk. I will say that. But I would say, maybe invest $75 more. You will be very happy with the Perfect Practice putting mat. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up. Me and Brady upload golf content every week. Subscribe, and we'll see you next time.